Chapter 27, Part 5. 2:10 p.m. Back in the car and suitably stuffed. After eating, I approached the barmaid to explain who I was and why I was there. She was an older lady, and I figured she would have some idea where I could start. She explained that she had lived on the island most of her life, but only in Southwell Village over the past 6 years. She knew the locals and plenty of faces around the village, but she'd never heard of Ernie and Samantha or Artie and Mandy. She called on her husband, who was working in the back, but he was none the wiser either. They were both genuine and helpful, but they were not in a position to help me. They suggested I return in the evening when a few more regulars would be in, and they would introduce me to a couple of the lifelong residents of the village. Her husband suggested I speak with the vicar at the church. He'd been there a lot longer than they had, and may remember something. I thanked them for their time and promised I would call back in later. I nipped up to the church, but there was no one around. I can try there later too. For the rest of the afternoon, I will ring and visit the painting and decorating firms in and around Weymouth. Surely someone would remember Arthur and Mandy, and Ernie and Samantha. 5:15 p.m. Back in my hotel room. Another productive day. Surprisingly, there were not that many painters and decorators in Weymouth, and the ones I spoke to had only been operational for the last decade or so. But my fifth call, though, struck gold. Chris Harrow, based in Bridport, had been in the game for over 35 years, and although he lived 20 miles out of Weymouth, he had worked as a contractor for Craven Homes. And, more importantly, he remembered Ernie and Arthur. We chatted about the jobs they had worked on together. He tried to recall those times. He said he didn't know them well, but what he could remember was all positive, as I had come to expect. He told me they were not in the game now, but he couldn't pinpoint the year they quit. He guessed around the late 90s. He remembered they had an office in Weymouth and another in Exeter in Devon. He said he had dealt with the Weymouth office on occasion. He told me Ernie was in charge there as the manager. Arthur was based in Exeter. Other than that, he didn't have much more to add, except one very little important nugget. Ernie was responsible for painting the famous lighthouse on Portland Bill. Everyone knew the lighthouse. It was the island's most famous landmark. I asked Chris if he could remember what year it was, roughly. He replied, "Every year. It was an annual tradition. Ernie was getting on in years, but he carried on with it after he retired, I think. He was a game old bugger. Have a run up to see it. I'm sure someone up there will have the information about old Ernie. He was a bit of a local celebrity, I believe." It was too dark to go there now. I still had to make a visit to the pub again. I can make another trip to the island tomorrow and visit the lighthouse. It's staggering to think of a man in his 60s or 70s would take on that job, but nothing seems to surprise me with Ernie anymore. Right, let's see what information I can get from the locals in the pub. I will update before bed. 10:50 p.m. No need to visit the church. The vicar was in the pub. And what a fine man he is too. And thanks to Decorator Chris and his lighthouse story, it wasn't hard to find people who either knew of or had heard of Ernie. Everybody knew the story of the lighthouse. The Reverend himself had a number of dealings with him. It turned out that Ernie had painted the rectory walls for free, as well as the stone walls surrounding the church. He called over an elderly couple from another table, Margaret and Harry, and they also remembered Ernie and Samantha. Margaret smiled as she recalled. They were a lovely couple. A right good laugh, the pair of them. He used to help out around the village, did Ernie, a proper handyman. He would do anything for anybody without a moan or complaint. He was always smiling. Another man, Mick, shared his memories of Ernie in the lighthouse. Every year he used to paint it. He didn't charge for anything other than the paint. My old dad used to take me up there to watch him. He would be up a huge ladder or hanging from a rope tied to the top railing in all weathers. It was bloody dangerous work for a young man, never mind someone of his age. Loads of us used to go up there and watch him. Tourists too. We would have a big celebration when he finished. It would take him a week or more to do it, and he never asked for any help. I think he got a great sense of freedom when he was up there, like hanging off the edge of the world. I think he has a plaque up at the visitors centre dedicated to him, and a newspaper article framed beside it. Earning his stripes was the headline. The red and white lighthouse is famous all over, and that was Ernie. What happened to him? I asked. A few people who knew him joined in on the conversation. People who'd lived in the village for a long time. From what I could gather, he lived on the island until approximately 2005. Someone remembered him leading the conga during the village celebration for the millennium. Someone else remembered celebrating England's Rugby World Cup win in 2003, when Ernie reenacted Johnny Wilkinson's last-minute drop kick to win the World Cup against Australia. He pulled his hamstring as a result. I worked out he must have been 74 years old then. Another customer remembered Samantha. She used to help out at primary school in her spare time, volunteering to take clubs and organise sports days and run the summer fete. She was also an incredible fundraiser for local charities, especially those that helped support vulnerable or sick children. Do you know why they moved? I asked. It was all quite sudden, the Reverend remembered. They moved to Exeter to be with their friends. I don't think they wanted to go, really, but they felt they didn't have much choice. It was a terrible shame. They were so settled here and so happy, but they were needed elsewhere. It's a testament to their character that they would uproot at that age to help others. They sold up and moved on, and we didn't hear anything from them after that. I kept hoping they would come back, said an older lady. They don't make them like that anymore. Oh, I do hope they're safe and well wherever they are. I sat with the group until nearly 10 o'clock. It was lovely to see such a close community. I wanted to be part of that too. An extended family, really, all there for each other. But Ernie wasn't there anymore. Sometime around 2005, he moved west to Exeter. Martha and Mandy were there. Were they the friends in need? It would seem so. Tomorrow morning I'll have a drive up to the lighthouse, the beacon of light and hope on the island. Ernie's lighthouse. 21st of March 2019. After another lovely breakfast, I headed back up to Portland and to the southern tip of the island, where the lighthouse stands proud over the cliffs, looking out over the English Channel. The same channel Ernie sailed through when he returned to England in 1965. I wonder if that crossed his mind while he was sat up there painting the red and white stripes that hug this impressive structure. It was built in 1906 and standing over 40 metres high. The lighthouse is the largest of its kind in the area. It attracts thousands of tourists each year. I wonder how many of them watched Ernie paint it. Sure enough, in the reception area of the visitors centre, there was the plaque and framed newspaper report. It contained a black and white picture of Ernie dangling precariously about halfway down, or up, waving towards the camera. The article sang his praises and commended his bravery for taking on such a dangerous task, especially at his age. The article was dated August 2003, and the plaque beside it simply read, "To Ernie Grimshaw, Portland Lighthouse Visitors Centre would like to place on record its thanks for all your help, support and dedication over the years. This light shines for you. 2003. 6:30 p.m. An email from Darren. Hi Paul, sorry for the delay. I've been on annual leave for a couple of days. With regard to your request, I can confirm the deeds to 1 Avalanche Road belong to Miss Bainbridge from the 15th of April 86 to the 8th of September 2005. The house was purchased by a Mr. Cross, who still resides there to this day. The name you gave me for 3 Avalanche Road does not exist in the system. Can you give me any further information? Speak soon, pal. Darren. Does not exist in the system? They live next door to each other. Mr. Simpson had visited. He had letters and addresses. How strange. I ran an internet search for Arthur's business name, but there was nothing. Not in Weymouth, nothing in Exeter either. Did he change it? The internet was only coming into its own in the 90s. The fact that a small local family-owned painting and decorating business does not show on the Google search pages is no real surprise, and they're clearly not still in business. But why no record of the land registry system? Now, Artie and Mandy seem to have disappeared off the face of the earth. What caused Ernie and Samantha to desert their happy life in Portland? Why did they need to go to Exeter to help out? Where did they move to? Bloody hell, here we go again.